The scent of white lilies will forever remind me of the day my world stopped turning. It wasn't a gentle, comforting fragrance. It was thick, cloying, and heavy, hanging in the humid air of the Dallas funeral home like a velvet curtain trying to mask a tragedy. I sat in the front row, my back completely straight, my hands folded tightly in my lap. At 68, I had attended my fair share of funerals. I had buried my parents, and decades ago, I had buried my husband, Thomas, when our son was just a little boy. But nothing, no amount of life experience or quiet faith, prepares a mother to bury her only child. Nathan was 46, a brilliant financial risk analyst, a man who built his entire career on predicting the unpredictable, taken by something completely unforeseen, a massive brain aneurysm. One moment he was reviewing a portfolio at his mahogany desk, and the next he was gone. A few feet away from me stood my daughter-in-law, Chloe. If grief were an Olympic sport, Chloe would have taken home the gold. She wore a flawless, custom-tailored black dress that somehow managed to look both mournful and ready for a cocktail party. She was flanked by two of her tennis club friends, her head resting delicately on the shoulder of one, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed lace handkerchief. Every few minutes, she would let out a soft, highly theatrical sob, just as a new group of wealthy suburban neighbors walked past the casket to pay their respects. "She's being so strong," I heard a woman behind me whisper. "A tragic widow at 41. How will she ever survive without him?" I swallowed the bitter taste of bile in my throat. I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of the country club set who viewed my son's sudden death as the latest piece of neighborhood gossip. My tears had been spent in the sterile waiting room of the ICU, holding Nathan's cooling hand, begging a God I wasn't sure was listening to take me instead. For the past 5 years, I had lived in the mother-in-law suite of their sprawling 6-bedroom colonial home in the prestigious Whispering Pines subdivision. I hadn't moved in because I was helpless. I had moved in because they needed me. When Nathan and Chloe wanted to buy this house, a house that was, frankly, far beyond their means, they were short on the down payment. I was a retired middle school English teacher. I didn't have a fortune, but I had the $50,000 Thomas had left me, the money I had carefully guarded for my own twilight years. "It's an investment, Mom," Nathan had promised me, his kind, tired eyes pleading with me over a cup of coffee. "You'll live with us. You'll never have to worry about a nursing home. We'll take care of you." I gave them the money. I sold my modest little ranch house, packed up my life, and moved into their shadow. I became the invisible gears that kept their extravagant lifestyle running. I cooked, I cleaned, I accepted delivery packages while Chloe was out getting chemical peels and $100 blowouts. I did it because I loved my son, and because I thought foolishly that we were a family. The reception at the house after the burial was a blur of casseroles, expensive catered hors d'oeuvres, and hollow condolences. Through it all, I moved like a ghost in my own home, refilling coffee cups and collecting discarded napkins. Chloe, meanwhile, held court in the center of the living room, a glass of Pinot Noir in her hand, leaning into the sympathy of her friends. When the last guest finally departed, the silence that fell over the massive house was deafening. I began gathering the empty wine glasses, exhausted to my very bones, craving nothing but the quiet sanctuary of my room. "Leave those, Evelyn. The cleaning service comes on Tuesday." Chloe's voice cut through the silence. It wasn't the trembling, fragile voice she had used all afternoon. It was sharp, cold, businesslike. I turned around, a handful of silverware in my grasp. She was standing by the kitchen island, her posture completely transformed. The weeping widow was gone. The calculating socialite had returned. "I'm just trying to help, Chloe," I said softly, the weariness dragging at my words. Nathan always hated waking up to a messy kitchen. She flinched, but not from grief, from annoyance. "Nathan isn't here anymore, Evelyn, and that's actually what we need to talk about." She walked over to the built-in espresso machine, pouring herself a glass of sparkling water, not offering me one. "I've been going over the finances. Between the mortgage, the HOA fees, the property taxes, it's a disaster. Nathan's life insurance isn't going to cover everything, and frankly, I need time to figure out my next steps without the burden of extra expenses." My heart did a slow, painful roll in my chest. "Extra expenses?" Chloe finally looked at me, her gaze sweeping over my simple black dress, her eyes devoid of any warmth. "You, Evelyn, the utilities for your suite, the groceries. The mental load of having someone else in my space while I'm trying to process this trauma. I need you to move out. The silverware slipped from my hands, clattering loudly onto the granite countertop. Move out? Chloe, it has been 3 days since we buried my son. This is my home. I gave you the down payment for this house. You gave Nathan a gift, she corrected smoothly, not missing a beat. A gift between a mother and a son. My name is on the deed. This is my house, and I simply cannot afford to maintain a charity case right now. A charity case. The word struck me like a physical blow to the face. I gripped the edge of the island, feeling the room spin slightly. I am not a charity case. I am your family. I have nowhere else to go. I gave you my retirement savings. Chloe sighed, the kind of exaggerated put-upon sigh one gives a stubborn toddler. Evelyn, be reasonable. You're 68. You get Social Security, don't you? There are plenty of state-run facilities that accept Medicare. I've actually taken the liberty of printing out a brochure for a place called Shady Oaks over in East Dallas. It's not the Ritz, but they provide 3 meals a day. A state-run facility, the kind of place with linoleum floors smelling of bleach and urine, where the elderly are parked in front of televisions and forgotten. She was throwing me away. You want me gone? I whispered, the reality crashing down on me, suffocating and cold. I want peace, Chloe replied, her tone completely devoid of empathy. I'll give you until Sunday to pack your things. That's 4 days. More than generous. If you need boxes, there are some in the garage. She didn't wait for a reply. She simply turned and walked up the grand sweeping staircase, her heels clicking rhythmically against the hardwood, leaving me standing alone in the cavernous, immaculate kitchen. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, my hands trembling. The betrayal was so profound it felt like a physical illness. I had sacrificed my independence for the illusion of family, and the moment the glue holding that illusion together was gone, I was discarded like yesterday's trash. The next 3 days were a masterclass in humiliation. I went to the local grocery store and begged for discarded cardboard boxes from the produce manager. I slowly began packing 50 years of a life into banana boxes. Every photograph of Nathan as a child, every piece of china Thomas and I had bought on our honeymoon, wrapped in newspaper and shoved into a box. Chloe, meanwhile, was rarely home. She claimed she was attending grief counseling, but she came home with shopping bags from Neiman Marcus and the distinct smell of expensive salon hairspray. We didn't speak. We moved around each other like strangers in a hotel. On Saturday afternoon, my final full day in the house, I was cleaning out the small desk in the corner of my suite. It was a beautiful antique roll-top desk that Nathan had bought for me at an estate sale. I was trying to figure out how to transport it, pulling out the drawers to lighten the load. When I pulled out the bottom right drawer, it stuck. I wiggled it, reaching my hand into the dark cavity behind the wood to see what was jamming it. My fingers brushed against a thick manila folder that had slipped down the back. I pulled it out, dusting it off. It wasn't mine. It must have belonged to Nathan, perhaps something he dropped when he was helping me move my paperwork months ago. Curious and desperate for anything that still carried my son's energy, I opened it. Inside were printouts of real estate documents. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was a listing agreement with a high-end luxury real estate brokerage in Dallas. There were professional photos of the house, our house. The asking price was exorbitant. I scanned the document, my eyes moving to the bottom where the signatures were. There was Chloe's elegant, sweeping signature. And then, I looked at the date next to her name. October 12th. I stared at the date until the numbers blurred. Nathan had suffered his aneurysm on October 8th. He had been rushed to the hospital, unconscious, kept alive by machines. The doctors had told us on the 10th that there was no brain activity, but they had kept him on life support until the 14th, so family could fly in to say goodbye. Chloe had signed the contract to sell the house on the 12th, while my son was lying in a hospital bed, technically still alive. While I was sitting in the chapel praying for a miracle, my daughter-in-law was meeting with real estate agents. She was having the house staged and photographed. She had planned to sell the house, pocket the equity, and throw me out onto the street before Nathan's heart had even stopped beating. The air rushed out of my lungs. I dropped the folder onto the floor. This wasn't a sudden decision brought on by the panic of grief or financial stress. This was premeditated cruelty. She had looked at her dying husband and seen nothing but a payout. She had looked at me, the woman who had funded this very roof over her head, and seen an obstacle to be cleared. A strange, unfamiliar sensation began to bloom in my chest. For 3 days, I had felt nothing but despair, helplessness, and crushing sorrow. I had felt old. I had felt like the pathetic, discarded widow she believed me to be. But as I looked at that date, October 12th, the despair evaporated. It was replaced by a heat so intense it made my hands stop shaking. It was a pure, crystalline, white-hot anger. I picked up the folder. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her. Confronting her now would be useless. She would only twist the narrative, play the victim, gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. No, Chloe operated in the shadows of polite suburban society, hiding her rot behind expensive dresses and forced smiles. If she wanted me out, I would go. I would play the part of the defeated, helpless old woman she expected me to be. On Sunday morning, I loaded my battered Honda Civic with the few boxes that would fit. The rest of my belongings, the antique desk, the dining table Thomas had built by hand, I left behind. Chloe stood on the front porch, sipping a green smoothie, watching me struggle with a heavy box of books. She didn't offer to help. "I'll have my lawyer send you the paperwork to sign away any claim to the furniture you're leaving," she said, her voice carrying over the manicured lawn. "Just to keep things clean." I closed the trunk of my car. I looked at the massive house, the perfectly trimmed hedges, and then at the woman standing on the porch. "Goodbye, Chloe," I said. My voice was steady, calm, betraying none of the fire burning inside me. "Drive safe, Evelyn. Enjoy your new chapter." She offered a tight, victorious smile and went back inside, closing the heavy oak door with a definitive thud. I got into my car and put it in drive. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror. I drove away from the wealthy enclave of Whispering Pines, heading toward the sketchy industrial side of town, where I had managed to rent a tiny one-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner. It was cramped, it smelled of chemicals, and the pipes rattled when you turned on the water. But as I sat on the lumpy mattress that first night, surrounded by cardboard boxes, I wasn't weeping. I had the manila folder resting on my lap. Chloe thought she had won. She thought she had cleanly excised me from her life, keeping the money, the house, and the narrative. She underestimated a mother's grief. More importantly, she underestimated a retired middle school teacher's patience. I had spent 30 years dealing with liars, manipulators, and bullies. I was Evelyn Harper, and I was going to find out exactly what else my daughter-in-law was hiding behind her suburban veil. November in Texas is usually mild, but the apartment above the Golden Hanger dry cleaners felt permanently steeped in a damp, chemical chill. For 30 days, my world had been reduced to 4 thinly insulated walls, a humming refrigerator from the 1990s, and a window that looked out over a cracked asphalt alleyway. The smell of perchloroethylene, the harsh solvent used to clean the expensive suits my daughter-in-law so casually discarded after a single season, seeped through the floorboards, a constant bitter reminder of my new reality. I had spent my entire adult life doing the right thing. I taught 7th grade English for 3 decades, paying my taxes, raising a decent man, and saving what little I could. I had surrendered my financial security for the promise of family, and this was my reward, counting out loose change for a can of generic chicken noodle soup while my son's widow likely dined on Wagyu beef entirely funded by his life insurance policy. In the 4 weeks since I had packed my life into those banana boxes, I hadn't heard a single word from Chloe. No phone call, no text message checking to see if I had survived the transition. The silence was absolute. In the eyes of Whispering Pines elite, I had simply ceased to exist. I was just another ghost of the suburban machine, quietly swept under the rug so as not to spoil the aesthetic. But I was not idle. I spent my days organizing my meager finances, mapping out exactly how far my monthly Social Security check and small teacher's pension would stretch. It was a bleak spreadsheet. Rent, utilities, Medicare premiums, groceries. There was no room for error, no safety net. If my ancient Honda Civic blew a head gasket, I would be destitute. This was the stark, terrifying reality of being an older woman alone in America. You are invisible until you become a burden, and then you are a problem to be solved. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when the landscape of my life fractured and reshaped itself once again. I was sitting at my small, wobbly kitchen table, nursing a cup of cheap black tea and scrolling through my emails on a 5-year-old Dell laptop that took 10 minutes just to boot up. Most of my inbox was junk, flyers for pharmacy discounts, political spam, and notifications from the local library. But sitting at the very top of the list, unread, was an email from a sender I didn't recognize. Garrett and Hayes, Digital Estate and Trust Management. The subject line made the tea catch in my throat. Automated scheduled delivery from the estate of Nathan Harper. My hands began to shake. I set the mug down so forcefully that hot tea sloshed over the rim, pooling on the cheap Formica table. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Nathan had been dead for a month. I clicked the email. It was a sterile, formal message explaining that their firm managed encrypted digital assets and that a timed release had been triggered by the issuance of a death certificate. There was a secure link and a prompt to enter a private passcode. Hint: the name of this golden retriever we had when I was 10. A wet, jagged sob tore from my chest. Buster. I typed the letters with trembling fingers. The screen loaded, revealing a secure cloud directory containing a handful of PDF documents and a single large video file. The thumbnail was an image of Nathan. He was sitting in his home office, the beautiful oak-paneled room in the Whispering Pines house. I clicked play. "Hi, Mom." The sound of his voice, rich, calm, and so incredibly alive, shattered the fragile composure I had built over the last 4 weeks. I pressed my hands over my mouth, tears streaming hot and fast down my cheeks. In the video, Nathan looked exhausted. There were deep purple shadows under his eyes, and his shoulders slumped under the weight of his expensive tailored shirt. He looked like a man carrying an invisible mountain. "If you're watching this," he said, offering a sad, lopsided smile to the camera, "it means my heart or my head finally gave out. And it means I'm so sorry to leave you." He paused, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I recorded this about 6 months ago. My doctors found an aortic anomaly, a ticking clock. They offered a surgery, but the odds... Well, I run risk analysis for a living, Mom. The odds of me coming off that operating table as anything more than a vegetable were less than 15%. I chose to manage it with medication. I chose to keep working, to keep preparing, because I had to make sure you were safe." He leaned forward and the vulnerability in his face vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp intensity I rarely saw in my gentle boy. "I know, Chloe," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "I know exactly who I married. I think I've known for years, but pride is a funny thing. You build a life, you buy the big house, you go to the country club, and you pretend you don't see the rot eating away at the foundation. But I see it, Mom. I see the credit card statements she tries to hide. I see the vanity, the narcissism, the absolute lack of empathy." He took a deep breath. "I know that if I die, the first thing she will do is try to erase you. She views you as an inconvenience, a drain on her resources. I know she'll try to kick you out of the house. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if she tries to list the property the second she thinks she can get away with it." I gasped, remembering the real estate contract dated just 4 days after his aneurysm. He had known. He had predicted her cruelty with chilling accuracy. "But here's the thing about Chloe," Nathan continued, a dark, cynical amusement creeping into his eyes. "She only cares about appearances. She doesn't understand mechanics. She doesn't understand how money actually works beneath the surface. She only understands how to spend it." Nathan reached off camera and pulled a thick stack of papers onto his desk. 5 years ago, when we bought this house, you gave us $50,000. You drained your retirement to give us the down payment. You thought you were buying into a family home. You thought you were securing your future." He looked directly into the lens, his expression fiercely protective. "I couldn't let you do that, Mom. If I had put your money into the general down payment, it would have become marital equity. Chloe would have owned half of it the second the ink was dry. And I knew that if things ever went south, she would bleed that equity dry for a kitchen remodel or a new Mercedes, and you would be left with nothing." My brow furrowed. If my money hadn't gone to the down payment, where had it gone? "I lied to you," Nathan said softly. "And I lied to Chloe. I used my annual corporate bonus to cover the actual cash down payment on this house. Chloe never checks the primary savings accounts. She only checks the checking account for her spending money. She had no idea." He held up a document with an official state seal. "I took your $50,000, Mom, and I formed a limited liability company in the state of Delaware. It's called Harper Horizon Holdings, LLC. And you, Evelyn Harper, are the sole proprietor and managing member. It's 100% yours. I just set it up on your behalf." I paused the video, my mind racing. A company? I owned a company? I pressed play again, leaning closer to the screen. "Now here's where it gets interesting," Nathan said, leaning back in his leather chair. "When we closed on this house, the bank financed 80%. I put down 10% in cash. And for the remaining 10%, your $50,000, we took out a second mortgage. A private mortgage." The room around me seemed to fade away. The hum of the refrigerator, the smell of the dry cleaners, all of it vanished into the background as the sheer brilliance of my son's mind began to unfold before me. "Harper Horizon Holdings, your company, issued a private loan to Nathan and Chloe Harper for the remainder of the house. We signed a promissory note, and more importantly, we signed a deed of trust." Nathan leaned forward, emphasizing every single word. "Mom, Chloe's name is on this deed of this house, but you are the lien holder. You are the bank. Harper Horizon Holdings holds a legally binding recorded secondary lien on the property at 442 Whispering Pines Drive." He let that sink in. I felt my lungs expand, drawing in the first full, deep breath I had taken in a month. "What does this mean for you?" Nathan asked the camera, a genuine smile finally breaking through his exhaustion. "It means Chloe is trapped. If I die, the primary mortgage gets paid off by a small credit life insurance policy I took out. The house will technically belong to her, but she cannot sell it. She cannot transfer the title. She cannot refinance it to pull cash out to pay her massive credit card debts. The title company will flag the secondary lien immediately." He tapped the paperwork on his desk. "She cannot do anything with that house unless she pays Harper Horizon Holdings the principal amount of $50,000, plus the 5 years of compounded interest I wrote into the promissory note. And more importantly, she cannot sell it without your physical, notarized signature on a lien release form." Tears blurred my vision, but this time they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of overwhelming, staggering awe. My son, my beautiful, brilliant boy, had spent the last 5 years quietly building an impenetrable legal fortress around me, right under his wife's surgically altered nose. "She is going to try to ruin you, Mom." Nathan's voice grew thick with emotion. "She is going to try to make you feel small and helpless and poor. She is going to try to discard you. Do not let her. I have left all the legal documents, the LLC formation papers, the registered deed of trust, and the promissory note in the folder attached to this email. Print them out. Get a lawyer. A ruthless one." He looked at the camera for a long, quiet moment. The silence stretched, heavy with the unsaid goodbyes of a man who knew his time was short. "I love you, Mom. You were the only real family I ever had in this house. Don't let her win. Take back what's yours. And go buy yourself that little lake house we used to talk about when I was a kid. You earned it." The video cut to black. I sat in the dim light of the apartment for a long time, staring at the dark screen of my laptop. Outside, the Texas rain lashed against the dirty window pane, washing the grime from the glass. I thought about Chloe. I thought about the smug, victorious look on her face as I drove away with my cardboard boxes. I thought about the luxury real estate agent she had hired while my son was on life support. I imagined her right now, probably sitting in the sprawling kitchen, browsing catalogs for designer furniture, eagerly awaiting a massive payout from the sale of a house she believed she owned free and clear. She thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. But the truth was, she hadn't even realized Nathan had locked her in the basement and handed me the keys to the entire house. I reached out and placed my hand flat on the closed laptop. The metal was warm. I was not a helpless widow. I was not a charity case meant for a state-run nursing home. I was Evelyn Harper, the sole proprietor of Harper Horizon Holdings, and I held the leash to Chloe's entire financial future in the palm of my hand. I stood up. My knees popped, my back ached, and I was wearing a faded cotton nightgown. But as I walked to the tiny kitchen counter to pour out the cold tea, my posture was completely different. The curve of defeat in my spine was gone. I stood tall. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be counting pennies for soup. Tomorrow, I was going to the public library to print out some very important documents. And then, I was going to find the most ruthless, terrifying real estate litigation attorney in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. Chloe wanted to throw me out into the cold? Fine. I was going to let her put the house on the market. I was going to let her pack her bags, plan her luxurious new life, and count her unhatched chickens. I was going to wait until the absolute last possible second. And then I was going to drop the sky on her head. The public library in my new neighborhood smelled of old paper and damp wool, a far cry from the lavender-scented air of Whispering Pines. I sat at a communal computer terminal, the plastic keyboard sticky under my fingertips, and fed dime after dime into the commercial printer. With every page that slid out of the tray, I felt a piece of my dignity returning. Here were the articles of organization for Harper Horizon Holdings, filed in Delaware. Here was the promissory note, bearing my son's signature in Chloe's sweeping, careless scrawl. And here, the crown jewel, the deed of trust, officially recorded with the county clerk 5 years ago, legally binding the Whispering Pines property to my LLC for the sum of $50,000, plus a fixed annual interest rate. Nathan had been meticulous. He hadn't just created a company, he had created an ironclad financial bear trap. But as I sat at the small library table, organizing the stack of legal documents, I realized I hadn't finished exploring the digital vault Nathan had left me. The video message had been the map, but there was another folder in the directory, simply titled Liabilities. I opened it on the library computer, shielding the screen from the teenager sitting next to me. Inside were dozens of PDFs, credit card statements, bank wire receipts, and email screenshots. I put on my reading glasses and began to sift through the digital paper trail of my daughter-in-law's secret life. Nathan had warned me she was terrible with money, but what I found wasn't just careless spending on designer shoes or spa weekends. It was systemic, desperate fraud. 2 years ago, Chloe had decided she wanted to be an entrepreneur. She and a business partner, a man named Dante, whose fitness modeling photos were prominently featured in several saved emails, had opened a high-end wellness center in uptown Dallas called Aura. But Aura had been a money pit from day one. To keep it afloat, Chloe had taken out massive high-interest business loans. When traditional banks cut her off, she went to shadow lenders, the kind of predatory private equity firms that charged loan shark interest rates and demanded absolute collateral. I opened a scanned document from a firm called Apex Capital. It was a demand letter. Chloe was in default on a balloon payment of $250,000, due by the end of November. The letter stated clearly that if the debt wasn't settled, Apex Capital would not only seize the failing business, but would pursue criminal charges for wire fraud, as Chloe had apparently falsified her husband's income statements to secure the original loan. I leaned back in the hard wooden library chair, the breath catching in my throat. This was why she was in such a rush. She wasn't just greedy, she was terrified. She was backed into a corner of her own making, facing total financial ruin and potential federal prison time. Selling the Whispering Pines house and keeping every single penny of the equity wasn't just a cash grab, it was her only life raft. She needed to close on that house, pay off Apex Capital, and bury her fraudulent business dealings before the authorities started asking questions. And to do that, she had thrown a 68-year-old grieving mother out onto the street. I carefully logged out of the secure cloud server, gathered my printed documents, and slipped them into a plain manila envelope. I didn't feel angry anymore. Anger is a hot, chaotic emotion. What I felt now was cold, precise, and absolute. My next stop was an office building in downtown Dallas. I didn't hire the friendly neighborhood lawyer who handled simple wills. I took the small amount of cash I had left in my checking account and hired Arthur Sterling. Arthur was a real estate litigator who looked like an aging bulldog in a $3,000 suit. His office didn't have calming watercolor paintings. It had framed copies of landmark appellate court victories. I sat across from his massive mahogany desk and laid out the printed documents from Nathan's vault, along with the printout of the active real estate listing for the Whispering Pines house. Arthur adjusted his spectacles, his eyes scanning the documents with the speed of a predator assessing a meal. The silence in the room stretched for 10 minutes. The only sound was the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner and the rustle of paper. Finally, Arthur took off his glasses and looked at me, a low whistle escaping his lips. "Mrs. Harper," he said, his voice a deep Texas gravel. "Your son was a savant. This private mortgage structure is flawless. The LLC shields you from personal liability, and the deed of trust is perfectly recorded with the county." "Can she sell the house?" I asked, my hands tightly folded in my lap. "Technically, anyone can list a house," Arthur explained, leaning back in his leather chair. "But selling it? Closing the deal? Absolutely not. When a buyer makes an offer, their title company runs a search to ensure the property is free and clear of debts. They will see the primary mortgage from the bank, and they will see the secondary lien held by Harper Horizon Holdings. The title company will not issue title insurance, and no bank will fund the buyer's loan until your lien is satisfied. Satisfied meaning paid in full, I clarified. Paid in full with interest and requiring your notarized signature on a release of lien document, Arthur confirmed. He tapped a manicured finger against his desk. Right now, your daughter-in-law has the property listed as pending. She's accepted an offer. The closing date is scheduled for next Friday. My heart gave a hard thump. Next Friday. She was mere days away from thinking she had escaped. Why hasn't the title company stopped her yet? I asked. Arthur smiled, a sharp, carnivorous expression. Oh, they likely have flagged it. My guess? The title officer emailed her a preliminary title report showing the LLC's lien. But people like your daughter-in-law, people who operate on arrogance and panic, tend to ignore the fine print until the very last second. She probably assumes Harper Horizon Holdings is just a shell company her husband used for a tax write-off, and she thinks she can easily sign for it at the closing table as his widow. He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. She has no idea that the managing member of that LLC is sitting in my office. I want to stop the sale, I said, my voice unwavering. I don't just want my money back, Mr. Sterling. I want her to look me in the eye when the walls close in. Arthur chuckled softly. Mrs. Harper, I like the way you do business. We won't just stop the sale. We will detonate it. For the next week, I lived a double life. In my dreary apartment, I ate ramen noodles and wore heavy sweaters to combat the draft. But in my mind, I was walking the halls of power. Arthur and I prepared our strike. We didn't send Chloe a warning. We didn't contact her real estate agent. We waited. Let her pack her designer clothes. Let her hire the expensive moving company. Let her taste the victory she had stolen from my son's grave. Friday morning arrived crisp and bright, the Texas sun reflecting off the glass skyscrapers of uptown Dallas. The closing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the offices of Vanguard Title and Escrow, a high-end firm that catered exclusively to the luxury market. Their lobby featured a waterfall wall and complimentary mimosas. I wore my best outfit, a tailored navy blue blazer I hadn't worn since Thomas's funeral, a crisp white blouse, and my pearl earrings. I didn't look like a charity case from a state-run facility. I looked like a woman who owned her own destiny. Arthur met me in the lobby at exactly 9:55 a.m. He carried a sleek leather briefcase and an air of absolute authority. "Ready, Evelyn?" he asked, offering me his arm. "I've been ready since the day she threw me out," I replied. We approached the receptionist, a young woman with a flawless blowout and an earpiece. "Can I help you?" she asked, her eyes darting over my older, sensible shoes. "Arthur Sterling, representing the primary lien holder for the Whispering Pines closing. Room 4, I believe." The receptionist blinked, momentarily confused, but Arthur didn't wait for her to buzz us in. He pushed through the heavy glass doors leading to the conference rooms, and I walked right beside him, my spine steel. We reached conference room 4. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass with the blinds partially open. Inside, it was a scene of celebratory relief. Chloe was seated at the head of the massive granite table, looking radiant in a white cashmere sweater. Next to her sat her real estate agent, a man with too much cologne and a shiny watch. Across from them were the buyers, a young, wealthy couple eagerly bouncing a baby on their knee. The escrow officer, a tired-looking woman with a thick stack of paperwork, was pointing to a line on a document with an expensive silver pen. Chloe reached out, her manicured fingers grasping the pen. She was smiling. It was the smile of a woman who had outrun the devil. Arthur opened the door. The heavy click of the latch echoed in the sudden silence of the room. Everyone looked up. Chloe's smile froze, her hand hovering an inch above the paper. When her eyes landed on me, the color drained from her face so rapidly I thought she might faint. The radiant glow of victory vanished, replaced by a pale, chalky mask of pure shock. "Evelyn?" she gasped, the pen trembling in her hand. What are you doing here?" "Hello, Chloe," I said smoothly, stepping fully into the room. The air conditioning was freezing, but I felt incredibly warm. "I'm here for the closing." The real estate agent stood up, puffing out his chest. "Excuse me, this is a private closing. Family disputes need to be handled outside. We are signing final documents here." Arthur stepped forward, unlatching his briefcase and dropping a thick stack of legal files onto the center of the granite table with a heavy, resounding thud. "We aren't here for a family dispute," Arthur said, his voice booming in the confined space. "We are here representing the primary creditor. I am Arthur Sterling. My client, Mrs. Harper, is the sole managing member of Harper Horizon Holdings, LLC." The escrow officer stopped breathing. She looked down at the title report in her file, her eyes widening as she connected the dots. "Oh my God," she whispered. Chloe stood up so fast her heavy leather chair scraped violently against the floor. "That's a lie. Harper Horizon is Nathan's company. I'm his widow, it passes to me. She has no right to be here." Arthur didn't even look at Chloe. He looked directly at the escrow officer. "As the escrow agent, I assume you ran a thorough title search, correct? And I assume you saw the deed of trust recorded against this property?" The escrow officer looked physically ill. "Yes, sir. I informed Mrs. Harper, the younger Mrs. Harper, that the secondary lien needed to be cleared before funding. She provided an email stating she was the heir to the LLC and would sign the release of lien today." "That is fraud," Arthur stated flatly, the word dropping into the room like a grenade. The buyers, the young couple, pulled their baby closer, their expressions turning from confusion to outright alarm. Arthur pulled a certified document from his stack and slid it across the smooth granite toward the escrow officer. "Here are the articles of organization for the LLC, stamped and certified by the Secretary of State. Nathan Harper was never a member. Evelyn Harper is, and has always been, the sole proprietor. And here is a formal notice of default." He turned his gaze to Chloe, who was gripping the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "Your client," Arthur said, addressing Chloe's agent, "is currently in default on a $50,000 private mortgage, which with 5 years of compounded interest and late fees, now totals roughly $82,000. My client has not agreed to release this lien. Therefore, you cannot transfer clear title. This sale is dead." The room erupted. The buyer's agent started shouting at Chloe's agent. The young mother grabbed her baby and dragged her husband toward the door, muttering about lawsuits and wasted time. The escrow officer scrambled to gather the unsigned paperwork, looking terrified of losing her license. Through the chaos, I didn't look at the agents or the buyers. I kept my eyes entirely on Chloe. She was breathing heavily, her chest heaving, the pristine white cashmere suddenly looking like a straitjacket. She looked at the door where her buyers, her lifeline, her escape from federal prison, were rapidly disappearing down the hallway. Then she looked at me. The mask of the grieving, perfect widow shattered completely, revealing the desperate, cornered animal underneath. "You planned this," she hissed, her voice shaking with venom and rising panic. "You knew about this the whole time I was packing you up. You sat there and let me list the house." "I did," I replied, my voice steady, cutting through the noise of the room. "Just like you sat by my son's hospital bed and planned to throw me onto the street." "You don't understand," Chloe shrieked, slamming her hands on the table. The remaining people in the room went dead silent. "I need this money, Evelyn. I have obligations. I have debts." "I know," I said quietly. Chloe froze. "I know about Aura Wellness, Chloe. I know about Dante. And I know about the $250,000 balloon payment you owe to Apex Capital by the end of the month." The silence in the conference room was absolute. Chloe's real estate agent slowly backed away from her, realizing he was standing next to a ticking legal time bomb. Chloe's knees buckled. She sank back into the chair, the fight completely draining out of her. She looked small suddenly. Stripped of the house, the money, and the lies, she was nothing but an empty shell facing a very dark reality. "Nathan knew, Chloe," I said, leaning over the table so only she could hear the full weight of my words. "He knew what you were. He built this trap years ago to protect me from the exact thing you tried to do. You thought you were burying me, but you were just digging your own grave." I didn't wait for her to respond. There was nothing left for her to say. I turned my back on her, picked up my purse, and walked out of the glass conference room alongside Arthur Sterling. Behind me, I could hear the muffled sounds of Chloe finally breaking down. Not the theatrical, delicate sobs she had performed at my son's funeral, but the ugly, gasping wails of a woman who had just watched her entire life burn to ash. I stepped out of the air-conditioned building and into the warm Texas sun. I took a deep breath. The air didn't smell like dry cleaning fluid or lilies anymore. It smelled like freedom. But the game wasn't entirely over. Chloe was desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things. She had lost the battle, but she still had one final pathetic card to play in a desperate attempt to save herself, and I was more than ready for it. The fallout from the aborted closing was swift and spectacular. Within 24 hours, the buyers had completely withdrawn their offer, citing clouded title and breach of contract. Whispering Pines was no longer a golden ticket for my daughter-in-law. It was a rapidly sinking ship, and she was shackled to the helm. I moved out of the apartment above the dry cleaners that very weekend. Arthur Sterling, anticipating the storm that was about to break, had advised me to relocate to a secure extended-stay hotel under a different name. When a rat is cornered, Evelyn, he had warned me over the phone, it doesn't surrender, it bites. He was right. Chloe was facing the total implosion of her fraudulent wellness spa, the wrath of a shadow lending firm, and the reality of a massive mortgage she couldn't pay. She didn't surrender. Instead, she hired a ruthless, bottom-feeding litigation attorney named Vance, a man known for throwing enough legal mud at the wall to see what stuck, and she filed a lawsuit against me. When Arthur handed me the summons in his office a week later, I had to read it twice to process the sheer audacity of it. Chloe was suing me for elder financial abuse, fraud, and tortious interference. But that wasn't the worst part. Her lawsuit claimed that I had manipulated my dying son. She alleged that the $50,000 had always been a gift, and that I had secretly colluded with a notary to forge the LLC documents and the deed of trust behind her and Nathan's backs in order to steal their home. It's a desperation play, Arthur assured me, pouring 2 cups of black coffee. She's trying to tie the property up in litigation so the private equity firm can't seize it immediately. She wants to freeze Harper Horizon Holdings so you can't foreclose on her. Can she do that? I asked, a sliver of the old familiar anxiety trying to take root in my chest. She can try. Arthur smiled grimly. We have the preliminary injunction hearing on Thursday. We'll let Mr. Vance put on his little circus, and then we will dismantle it. Thursday arrived with a heavy, oppressive Texas heat. The Dallas County Courthouse was a towering monolith of marble and oak, a place where lives were dissected and judged. I wore a tailored gray suit and kept my chin high as Arthur and I walked into the courtroom. Chloe was already there, sitting at the plaintiff's table. She had abandoned the grieving widow aesthetic. Today, she wore a sharp, aggressive crimson blazer, her hair pulled back in a severe, slicked bun. When I walked in, she didn't look away. She glared at me, her eyes burning with a venom so toxic it practically radiated across the room. Next to her, Vance was rapidly sorting through a thick stack of files. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s named Honorable Davis, called the court to order. She looked exhausted, peering over her reading glasses at the 2 legal teams. All right, counsel. I've read the briefs. Mr. Vance, your client is alleging that the secondary lien held by Harper Horizon Holdings is fraudulent, and you are requesting a temporary restraining order to prevent foreclosure. Make your case and make it quick. Vance stood up, puffing out his chest. Your Honor, this is a tragic case of a mother taking advantage of her son's untimely passing to unlawfully seize marital assets from his grieving widow. We have reason to believe the LLC documents were fabricated. However, we have something even more compelling. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper housed in a clear plastic sleeve. Your Honor, just 2 days ago, my client was sorting through her late husband's personal effects, preparing to donate his clothes to charity. Tucked inside the pocket of his favorite winter coat, she found a handwritten letter. It is signed by Nathan Harper and dated October 1st, just 1 week before his tragic aneurysm. My stomach dropped. Vance handed a copy to the bailiff, who passed it up to the judge, and another copy to Arthur. I leaned over Arthur's shoulder to read it. The handwriting was a messy, slanted scrawl. It looked exactly like Nathan's. To whom it may concern, I, Nathan Harper, am writing this to formally state my intention to dissolve Harper Horizon Holdings, LLC. The company was created in error. My mother, Evelyn Harper, has been exhibiting severe signs of cognitive decline and paranoia. I fear she is attempting to manipulate my finances. The $50,000 was a gift to my wife and me. I am voiding the promissory note and the deed of trust effective immediately to protect my wife, Chloe. Signed, Nathan Harper. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. I looked at Chloe. She was staring at me, a tiny triumphant smirk playing at the corner of her lips. She had forged it. She had perfectly mimicked my son's handwriting and manufactured a ghost to testify against me. And worse, she was using the cruelest weapon imaginable, claiming I was losing my mind. Your Honor, Vance continued smoothly, this letter clearly demonstrates Mr. Harper's intent. The LLC was a mistake, and he knew his mother was not mentally fit to manage such an entity. We ask that the lien be immediately struck from the title. Judge Davis frowned, looking down at the letter. In a court of law, a signed declaration from the deceased, even unnotarized, could create enough reasonable doubt to tie a case up in probate for years. Years I didn't have. Years Chloe would use to live in the house and figure out a way to escape her own creditors. Mr. Sterling, the judge looked over at us. This letter is highly problematic for your client's position. Arthur didn't panic. He didn't even blink. He slowly stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. Your Honor, Arthur began, his voice a rich, resonant baritone that commanded the entire room. It is indeed a fascinating letter. The handwriting is incredibly accurate. The signature is a near-perfect match for Nathan Harper's. Chloe's smirk widened. She thought Arthur was conceding. However, Arthur continued, reaching into his pocket, my client was also left a message by the late Mr. Harper, not a piece of paper found conveniently in a coat pocket, but a digitally encrypted, time-stamped, secure video file held in a blind trust until his death. With the court's permission, I would like to submit Exhibit A into evidence and play it for the court. Vance jumped up. Objection. Surprise evidence. Your Honor, this evidence directly addresses the authenticity of the plaintiff's Exhibit 1, Arthur countered smoothly. Overruled, Judge Davis snapped, clearly intrigued. Set up the monitor, Mr. Sterling. Arthur connected a small laptop to the courtroom's large flat-screen TV. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. This was it, the final folder in the digital vault. The file Nathan had labeled simply, Checkmate. The screen flickered to life. There was Nathan, sitting in his home office. The date stamp in the bottom corner of the video read, September 15th, 3 weeks before he died. Hi again, Mom. Nathan's recorded voice filled the dead-silent courtroom. At the plaintiff's table, Chloe let out a sharp, involuntary gasp. She stared at the screen, her face draining of all color. If this video is playing, Nathan said to the camera, his face grim and exhausted, it means Chloe is trying to fight the LLC. And knowing Chloe, she hasn't just hired a lawyer. She's tried to manufacture a lie. Nathan reached off camera and held something up to the lens. It was a piece of paper. The exact same type of paper Vance had just submitted to the judge. For the past month, Nathan explained, my wife has been practicing my handwriting. She thinks I don't notice, but I found her practice pads hidden beneath her vanity in the master bathroom. She has been meticulously copying my signature from old tax returns. Vance looked at Chloe, his eyes wide with sudden panic. Chloe was completely frozen, her mouth slightly open, a statue carved from terror. I know she is in desperate financial trouble with her fraudulent wellness center, Nathan continued, his voice hardening with anger. And I know she is planning to forge a document to either take control of my life insurance or to invalidate the protective trust I built for my mother. So I decided to help her out. Nathan held the paper closer to the camera. While she was at the salon yesterday, I went into her bathroom. I took a piece of her expensive stationery, and I wrote a letter. I wrote the exact letter I knew she would want. Nathan began to read aloud, and every word that echoed through the courtroom was a nail in Chloe's coffin. I, Nathan Harper, am writing this to formally state my intention to dissolve Harper Horizon Holdings. My mother has been exhibiting severe signs of cognitive decline. He read the entire letter verbatim. The exact letter Vance had just submitted as Chloe's miracle discovery. I wrote it, Nathan said, dropping the paper onto his desk. I forged my own forgery, just to see if she was stupid enough to use it. If she submitted that letter to a court, Your Honor, please note the date. She claims I wrote it, but I placed a tiny invisible UV ink stamp in the bottom left corner of that paper. The stamp bears the logo of my corporate accounting firm, a firm I haven't worked for in 3 years. Judge Davis immediately picked up the plastic sleeve containing Chloe's letter, holding it up to the overhead fluorescent lights, squinting at the bottom corner. Furthermore, Nathan's voice dropped, becoming dark and intensely serious. If she has submitted this letter, she has committed perjury and fraud upon the court. I am authorizing my mother's attorney to release the rest of this hard drive to the district attorney's office. It contains definitive proof that Chloe Harper has been falsifying loan applications, defrauding private equity investors, and his voice broke slightly. that 2 weeks ago, she attempted to forge my signature to triple my life insurance payout without my knowledge or medical consent. The video ended. The screen went black. The silence in the courtroom was so profound it felt like a vacuum. No one moved. No one breathed. Then Vance began violently shoving his files back into his briefcase. He didn't even look at Chloe. He looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, I would like to formally request to withdraw as counsel for the plaintiff, effective immediately. I was not made aware of the fraudulent nature of this document." "Granted, Mr. Vance," Judge Davis said, her voice dripping with ice. She turned her fierce gaze upon Chloe. "Mrs. Harper, you have just submitted a forged document into my courtroom in an attempt to steal from a senior citizen. Bailiff, please contact the district attorney's office. I believe we have a matter of criminal fraud to discuss." Chloe didn't scream. She didn't cry. The absolute crushing weight of her own arrogance had finally collapsed the roof over her head. She slumped forward onto the plaintiff's table, burying her face in her arms, her shoulders shaking in silent, total defeat. She had tried to dig a grave for me, but my son had been waiting at the bottom of it with a shovel of his own. I stood up slowly. I didn't feel the need to say anything to her. There was no grand speech, no gloating. The universe had delivered its verdict, and justice was a remarkably quiet thing. Arthur packed up his briefcase, snapping the brass locks shut. He turned to me and offered a rare, genuine smile. "Well, Evelyn, shall we go foreclose on a house?" "Yes, Arthur," I replied, smoothing the front of my jacket. "I believe we shall." 6 months later, the suburban veil of Whispering Pines was fully lifted. The bank, the private equity firm, and the state of Texas all descended upon Chloe. She lost the house, the cars, and the designer wardrobe. She pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of wire fraud to avoid a lengthy prison sentence, but she was bankrupt, disgraced, and completely exiled from the wealthy society she had worshipped. As the primary lien holder, Harper Horizon Holdings took possession of the property. I didn't keep it. The house was too big, too cold, and full of ghosts. Arthur handled the sale. We sold it for top market value. After paying off the first mortgage, I reclaimed my original $50,000, plus 5 years of aggressive interest, plus a massive portion of the accumulated equity. I was sitting on the back porch of my new home when the final wire transfer hit my bank account. It wasn't a sprawling mansion in a gated community. It was a beautiful 2-bedroom cedar cabin on the shores of Lake Travis. It had a wraparound porch, a small dock, and a garden where I could plant my white lilies. It was exactly the kind of place Nathan and I used to talk about when he was a little boy, dreaming of escaping the city. I held a mug of hot chamomile tea, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic as I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the water in shades of gold and violet. A cool breeze drifted off the lake, bringing the scent of pine needles and fresh water. I missed my son every single day. The grief would never truly leave. It simply changed shape, becoming a quiet companion rather than a crushing weight. But as I sat there in the peaceful twilight, completely independent, completely secure, and totally free, I felt a profound sense of peace. Nathan had promised to take care of me. He had promised I would never be discarded, never be invisible, and never be thrown away. And from beyond the veil of this world, my beautiful, brilliant boy had kept his word.